Welcome back to the Electrify podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo, North America's largest EV festival, coming to a major city near you. Here we are with another episode, and super excited about this guest. Not only does he, play a major role in the EV world, but he's a fashionable guy. His home, everything he does has this cool little clean, sterile nuance. So, has a great background in the customization world prior to EV, and then now has evolved that into the EV world. We talk about like the Electrify show off, which is this cool car show, sneaker show, right? The Chin Bros are really dialing in, but Ryan Basseri, like a boss, comes in, aka Rye Wire. Thanks for joining me, dude.
What's up, dude? Thanks for having me, Jarod.
Yeah, and super excited to talk to you about all the projects you have going on. But let's start past, present, future, right? So the past, Rye Wire came out of kind of the Honda world primarily, right? Am I correct in saying that, or just wiring in
Yeah.
general? I mean, what's kind of your lineage that's gotten you to this point with all the equity and all the time spent? Why do people trust Rye Wire?
Well, yeah, definitely from the Honda community. I think that's pretty common across a lot of the podcasts I listen to. Like everybody's OG Honda boy, right? So I'm no different. My uncle exposed me to the Honda CRX world back in like 98, 99. I'm 40 now, so you could do the math. I've been doing it for a while, as yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody kind of started with Hondas, and for me it was CRXs, and it kind of evolved into different other Hondas, right? And it stayed very, very, H for life and Acuras and stuff like that. Yeah, and then it kind of started into like, well, what other motorsports are out there? What other fun things can we do with these cars? Started doing like wiring looms for Toyota Supras and RX-7s, and all the JDM hotness, everything that everybody aspires to build and own these days. So back then it was really big into motorsport, drag racing. Then it kind of turned more into drift.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, you see me a little bit in the FD world. We try to take on like a customer or two each year and do a, ground up build with them, do the wiring, PDM programming, and implement our engine management solutions into their vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, it's cool to see what you do because it's about the functionality, but also let's just call it what it is. You have these crazy, really clean aesthetic. That's why I said I started on on the top end, saying and talking about your attention to detail and why is that so important to you? Because it's just wiring, like what I mean, like but like a house, like a car. Oh, that's a rat's nest. You're creating this kind of Rye Wire aesthetic that again has come from the functionality of having something that works with different connectors and going to the firewall and all that. That comes from like the car show world. I mean, even old shaved firewalls, of hot rods and lowriders and all that. You brought that kind of into the tuner world. Am I correct?
Totally. Yeah. So I first kind of started seeing that in motorsport. A couple friends kind of exposed me to, hey, look at these connectors, look at this wire that we're using. And I'm like, wow, I need to look into that a little bit more. And this was early on, this was, God, almost 20 years ago, right? And I started seeing it and I was like, well, maybe I can implement this. And ultimately, I was thinking, this is a lot of money. Like these connectors are maybe a couple $100. That's more than most people's full wiring looms, or nobody would ever think about spending $200 on one Canon plug, right? Well, I've always kind of been the guy who was just like, let's just make it happen, whether it's going to cost a little bit more, whatever. I got to work a little bit harder, but ultimately we have to have the best aesthetic we can. It's going to keep the reliability up. It's going to draw a lot of attention. Like
Mm-hmm.
as you're saying right now, it's like, that Canon plug on the firewall. I'm like, let's make a nice little plate. Let's put a branding on it. Let's make it a thing,
Yep.
right? So I first did my first big full wiring job was a K-swap CRX. We wired it, or I wired it from the front headlight to the rear tail light. I brought it to one of those Week Fest shows, back when it was still in Japantown in San Francisco. So, I mean, it was before Week Fest. They weren't even called that at that point,
Right.
And everybody was just kind of in awe of the wiring loom. And it's just like, all it is wires, but everybody's like, how does this look so good? It looks like it's floating. Doesn't even look like the engine's running.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I think I got something here. And I just kind of continued down that path and kept learning and, educating myself and not being scared to spend a few bucks to make something that's really different, cool, and just more exciting.
Yeah.
Something that's so dull like wiring, you got to make it a little bit more exciting, got to spruce it up a little bit. So the little yellow tags that were used in motorsport, and that's really to be able to see properly what sensors what, and it helps the technicians, but it also gives a pop to the engine bay, and people go, "Oh, that's a motorsport wiring harness because it has those little yellow tags."
Kind of no news is good news in the wiring world, right? So, and that's what it usually happens in motorsports. It's the 15-cent part, not the $1,500 part, right? So just all those little details. Not only does it look aesthetic, but it functions and the functionality of it. So you sent me a message and you're like, hey man, like I'd love to be on the podcast. I was like, okay, cool. Like what are you doing here? You're like, boom, 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 boom. And you hit me with so much stuff. I had no idea. So pardon my ignorance. I am familiar with the S2000, but I was not familiar. We get inundated with so much stuff. I mean, I'm doing Formula Drift, I'm doing
Oh, yeah.
Nitro Cross, and doing all these things. And I'm most excited about your house, and we'll get to that, and kind of your garage. And again, we're talking about you, me, Vin, all the dudes that have the mid-century modern aesthetic and homes. We need to do a golf and a car cruise and do all these mid-century modern tours. But we'll get to that in a moment.
Yes.
And that kind of just that contributes to the overall Rywire brand and what you've created. But now you take all this Honda equity, all this, like you said, H for life. Even I don't know if you see his shirt right there. Is that your CRX on your shirt even?
So actually, I was wondering if anybody could notice this. So this is season 9 of Seinfeld. Does that look familiar at all? So there's the Y49 CRX in Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
Season 9. They always have that clip. And me and my buddy Frank from Downstar, we created this shirt, and we were like, dude, let's do something that's just like, if you know, you know. And every now and then when I wear it, somebody's like, dude, is that Seinfeld? I'm like, yes, right? So we kind of just like, we made it look very old, just like an old television, all blurry, and you
Yeah.
can't really tell what's going on, but we thought it was super cool because you have the CRX, and then there's an Acura on it too in the beginning there. And yeah, it's really neat. And we made a skateboard deck, and we just did some fun things with it. We made a little skate video, and yeah, we wanted to just kind of show, like, pay homage to Seinfeld, which, Jerry's a big 911 guy.
Yep.
They put
Sneakerhead,
actually like
right? I mean,
a lot of
Jerry
Honda
Seinfeld's a big
stuff in that,
sneakerhead.
little Easter eggs.
Yeah, yeah. And again,
True,
yeah, Jerry's a
definitely is.
yeah, big sneakerhead, and boom, 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 boom. I can just hear the music in my head now. Um, so take all this equity from Honda
Yep,
and now applying it to EV. When was the like
yep.
aha moment in that world? Is that just because you are a tech motivated guy that you said, I'm gonna kind of get to market on this, or who's your kind of gateway EV dealer?
Okay, so I would say that the first time that I really like, obviously, when Teslas hit the market, I was intrigued, right? Like, wow, they're actually apparently pretty quick. My buddy Sheng from JHP, I don't know if you know Sheng
Yeah,
Chao.
yeah,
He came and had lunch at my shop one day, and this was like really early on. It was like he had one of the earlier Model S's, and I've seen the cars, but I hadn't ridden them or anything, or saw their true performance. And yeah, we went for a ride, and I was impressed. I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. So it hit my radar. Okay, so it was just a radar thing. Great, I
mhm,
saw it. Seems cool. Then I started noticing some aftermarket controllers that were coming out, and I was like, "Oh, there's guys that are trying to control these motors, and if they can control the motors, then that means you could potentially swap them, right?" I was like, "Okay, okay, this is cool." I'm not really there yet to just like jump in and build a car, but I was intrigued, right?
mhm.
So BC Moto, we do a lot of wiring projects together. We talk a lot. We're friends. He's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try to do one of these EV swaps. And I'm like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I want to do a 911. I was like, all right, cool, cool. So this was circa 2018 when we did this car. So he reached out and he said, let's help me build the wiring loom. I said, great. At least I don't have to foot the bill and build the whole car. I don't have the time to do it at the time, but I did have time to help him with the wiring part. And then I can learn a lot about the project because I'm there firsthand. I'm seeing his trials and tribulations. I'm seeing all the problems that could, arise, and how complicated. I remember having a conversation with him, and I said, "Dude, I'm down to try this, but I think I want to do like something more difficult, like a parallel hybrid." And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I think you need to get your feet wet because there's a lot of things going on with just even something as easy as a Tesla swap. I was like, okay, well, we'll see, you know? So we get into it, and God, there were so many problems with stuff. It was like both of our first rodeos. We're like, what is going on? This is so complicated, right? So we sorted through all the gremlins and got the car running. And okay, I'm like, all right, I want to try this for myself as well, right? So that's where the S2000 kind of came in, which I definitely want to talk about later. But let's just kind of say, okay, boom, S2000.
Put a pin in
I
that.
learned a lot. And then you were actually there, Jarod. You were there when I got my first ride in Von Gitten's car. That was SEMA
Oh,
2021. Remember we were talking about shoes
yeah.
in mid-century houses?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then so I jumped in the car with Vaughn and
And you're talking about
did a
the
little,
the Mach E?
exactly. So I was in the Mach-E 1400, and that was really cool. Just being, in the car with him driving the car, showing me what the car could do. I mean, it's a 1400 horsepower Mach-E. It's rad as rad could be.
Mhm.
Um, had a lot of fun, and that was hugely inspiring for myself because the S2000 is just a simple drive unit in the rear. Nothing too crazy. It's fast, but the Mach-E was this all-wheel drive car. So that inspired me to start my build with my dual motor Honda Civic. So my dual motor Honda Civic is actually a very cost, highly. I'm pinching my pennies, but I'm trying to build a Mach-E 1400. That's kind of what the
Okay.
goal was with that vehicle. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
um,
think I
and
think
then
it's
that brought us
exercise
to
in.
here today, and now we're working with a bunch of guys.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I think it's about efficiency, right? And you wanna make it approachable as opposed to just being like, "Yeah, it's EV and we're doing this and doing that." And to your point, the Mach-E 1400, that is Ford's all EV debut, so they needed to come out swinging, right? I mean, here's Ford. Yeah, you talk about your Honda. I'm just looking at your feed. If you have not followed, it's a little lengthy, but Rywire, RYWIRE underscore motorsport underscore electronics. And you'll see the the Civic, the EK, which is near and dear to my heart. Yeah, oh, actually you break it down right there. Yeah, you're talking about the budget on the vehicle as well, north of 2 mil, which was the Mach E, but now you're you're making it approachable. But the S2000, I think was really, really cool, even down to the wheels, like that wheel opening, to show the caliper. And I mean, just if you have not seen this vehicle, so you're saying chicken or the egg, you were like, okay, I'm gonna apply my Honda stuff to EV via Shang, via BC. So and you approached all these different things. So the S2000 was your first debut.
Yeah, that was my first rodeo with EV. It was a project that was supposed to be for SEMA 2020. It was going to be in the Turn 14 booth, but I believe 2020 was the buy year because of COVID, right?
Hmm.
So that didn't end up happening. Hit and Paddock ended up doing something in 2021, and my car was there with a bunch of others. It was super cool, but I mean, 2020 would have been rad because it would have been in the Turn 14 booth inside and everything, but that didn't happen. But the car was finished. We did do an unveiling at Period Correct, so that was a neat little cool thing to be able to unveil the vehicle. That car is pretty cool. We're actually rebuilding it again. I just put, like the recent rebuild was to put the AEM system in. That was a huge performance step up. And then now I'm actually making it more like a daily driver. So I'm converting it to just like a street spec, a lot more simple. The wheels were really there to just showcase the brakes because they were, collaboration and working with Stop Tech on for the Turn 14 for SEMA. So that
Yep.
look of that car was really SEMA focused. I'm trying to scale it back a little bit more now and make it like a street car. So because the EK is going to be like the new flagship vehicle, I kind of want to have like a really cool street car daily driver, and I'm turning the S2000 more into daily use.
It's really impressive. And just again, going through your feed, you just have this continuity of progression, which is really noble and difficult. So, having these test mules of an S2000 and working with these partners, I think that's what's really important is I feel like the EV world is kind of rising tide lifts all ships, right? I mean, you talk about working with BC and working with different partners. I feel like everybody wants this to happen, looking at, even what Icon Jonathan Ward has done, Icon 4x4, and making these, EV capabilities available, and just really kind of getting out there and forging new ground, and really embracing the EV world. What do you say to anybody that's like, why would you do that too? It's a perfectly good Honda S2000. Why did you do that? What do you say to somebody that says you're not a purist? I mean, shoot, swaps happen all the time, but why EV? What do you say to people?
Because the field that I'm in, and always, I mean, I've done so much as far as like building just different cars and gasoline engines, that I'm not going to say got bored of it, but I was a little just like numb to it.
Hmm.
And I felt like, implementing, Motec ECUs and, different engine managements into gasoline engines it's pretty easy once you get the formula down. And the EV stuff was so foreign to me. I literally didn't even, I mean, I barely understood what it would take to build a 400-volt pack. Like, I didn't even really understand, okay, what components do I need? And, BC kind of showed me a little bit of that. And then I learned a bunch more just doing research. And I'm like, this is something that I need to know being a wiring guy. And like, to be honest, like now we work with AEM on a lot of their projects. Like we rewired the Camaro. You remember the drift car, the
Yep.
FD drift car, right?
Mhm.
So AEM actually owns that car now, and they're using it for exhibition at the Holly EV Festival. So we had to rewire the whole car and put, the AEM EV system in that car. But yeah, working with all these partners. And then now I'm very grateful that I have the groundwork, because sometimes you just have to, pay the bucks and learn how to do it yourself. And then you can extend that to a customer and say, I know what to do. Let me help you with that. So there's been a lot of that as well. We work with APP EV, and they're the 911 guys that are doing the kits for the EVs. And yeah, I mean, just laying the groundwork and understanding what you're working with. You just you got to teach yourself somehow, right? So
Is it intimidating working with electricity? I mean, I know, I live in an old house, just house stuff. I'm like, oh, and now here you are. I know the Mach-E 1400. It has these kind of warning lights on the side of it. Green, you're
sure.
good to go. Red, you're dead. Don't touch the dang thing. And that's got to be a little nerve wracking as well there, because like you said, uncharted territory, and flirting with electricity and power and batteries. I mean, I know that, if it's Formula E, or even as you talk about this electric drift car, when it ran at Long Beach, there was a big like hubbub about, what if something happens? It's a big thing if something does go south.
Don't get me wrong. Like when I was connecting, I was putting all the different modules in series, and I was like, this is going to either blow up in my face or be perfectly fine, and I don't know, there was no sparks. It's just something you have to be I mean, proper gear. So I've invested in tools that are insulated, which is really cool, and that helps a lot. Also gloves, and even eye protection. So if something did like blow up or spark, I would be safe because I would have proper gloves, right? I would have tools that are insulated, so I shouldn't like knock into anything, creating any arcing. And then, obviously you're in between the arcing, so that's really sketchy. So it's important to have all that insulation. And then also glasses, because you don't want to, if there was like a spark burst or something blew up, I could, I'm good here, but I need to be able to see, right? So definitely glasses and stuff. So all those three like main protection things, and then just understanding how it works and not being intimidated or scared of it. Just really understand that, you're making your final connections. That's when stuff gets really sketchy. So you're adding modules, right? And they might be like 60 volts, they might be 24 volts, and you're linking them all together, positive to negative, positive to negative. That last connection that gets really sketchy. And having proper contactors and isolating devices is really important. Also, like the warning stuff that you're talking about, that's something that we did put on the drift car, which is now like the AEM exhibition car.
Yep.
There's warning lights, safety lights, and like sounds and stuff like that that make it very known if there's like an isolation breakdown or something could be harmful.
the learning the stuff you have in EV, and you're not opposed still to what is deemed ICE, right? Internal combustion engines. You're not opposed to that. What did you apply from the EV world that you've learned now to ICE and, as you say, gasoline engines? What have you applied there? Is there any
Well,
crossover?
yeah, I mean, definitely the cleanliness and the wiring loom stuff is a easy carryover, right? Also, there's a lot of cooling in EV. When you're talking, using the quote unquote juice from the battery, you're charging the car, you're decharging the car. When things are rapidly happening, that is when it's most critical to keep cooling, the components cooled and chilled. So yeah, like understanding how air conditioning systems work and then implementing Freon into cooling systems with chillers, um, understanding how actuators work and valve solenoids and power distribution modules like our PDMs, they're so important, so critical with EV vehicles.
And you see these PCs that these gamers are building, or with the fluids running through them, and what is that primarily that are you applying kind of some of that stuff? You talk about that, people don't really think about that you have these batteries that run hot. I mean, if you're on an iPhone, just call it what it is. It shuts down, it's too hot, and efficiency. It's all about efficiency and that getting that power and that surge. So are you applying some of that kind of technology as well, like what they're doing PCs?
Oh yeah, totally, 100%. So there's chilling plates. There's a lot of the battery packs that we use have cooling paths in them. And then, yeah, you have to be able to cool the motors. Like one thing that we first saw with Tesla is they actually use the Freon from the air conditioning system. They put it through a chiller, and then when it's kind of like doing the countdown. If you're doing a ludicrous mode like launch, it may give you a few seconds like, hey, we're preparing, warming up, getting ready to go. So what that's actually doing is it's either warming the electric motor if it's a really cold day and you haven't been circulating a lot of fluids through the motor, or it's chilling the motor. So it's turning on the air conditioning. Even if it's not turning it on for the cabin, it's turning it in the system. It's sending Freon through a chiller. And then what that's doing is it has cross path of coolant, and then that coolant's getting basically zapped, and then it's going straight through that motor, and it's cooling down that motor, preparing it to be in the perfect temperature to give basically the peak amount of amp request, so it has the most amount of power. So yeah, all that stuff is, we're totally implementing that into all the vehicles that we're doing.
That is so cool. And all right, I got to ask you, whose build do you admire that has applied EV now? Let's just call it an EV hot rod. Who's your favorite EV hot rod currently?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. Everybody's kind of doing stuff a little differently, and then there's different vehicles that I like more. You know what I'm saying? So I would say that there's a guy in Hawaii that did it's a Supra, and he did a large Tesla drive, and then he's actually taking everything out, and he's going to do a large, I think two large Tesla drives is what he's doing. So he's going to do a front motor and a rear motor, and that one's going to be really cool because need to see his progression and his learning. But as far as like higher end stuff, obviously Vaughn Gittin's 1400, that car was hugely inspiring for me, being able to ride in it, being able to see the performance. So I mean, I know that's more on like a Ford budget, but nonetheless, like that's probably my favorite car for sure. Just it being all wheel drive, and the
Yeah.
ability to just be able to rip the chassis apart if you wanted to.
Yeah, make it modular, right? And I think that's what's really cool about it is, like you said, there's the ICE, there's so many moving parts. Literally, here's EV that can be implemented and it's efficient, and talking about, the development and all that. It's really admirable. So are you taking customers on and they're saying, "Hey, I want to make this EV." Are you taking customers on and saying, "All right, yeah, we'll do this?" And obviously it's like a house renovation, you got a budget, but are you taking clients on?
At the moment, I'm not taking any clients on. What I'm kind of focused on is one, getting a lot of development and time spent with the two cars that we're building. There's a third vehicle that I'm building, and that's an EG hatchback, and that's going to have a small Tesla drive in the front, going to have a real simple battery system in the back. So what I do is that's going to be a kit. So that kit is going to be cross capable to go into an EK hatch, an EG, a DC2. And then we're also creating, we already did the rear motor girdle, and that could actually probably be implemented into a lot of different vehicles for the rear. So what my strategy is I'm working with Hasport right now, and obviously they're huge with engine mounts for Hondas. And I really want to get my feet wet in the Honda community with the EV. So creating a kit that's cross-platformed and can go into different vehicles is kind of the goal. And I want this kit to be something that one of my
Sweet.
dealers can install. And I may eventually add somebody to our team that will do maybe like a couple or a few of these installs a year. Also helping with a lot of development and making that kit like as good as it can be. But for me as a business, I feel like making a kit, giving all the components, and then doing good like YouTube videos explaining how to install the system, and then also having a network of local shops that are willing to take on these projects. So I've had a lot of people reach out and they're like, dude, I want to put one in my Civic. I want to put one in my whatever, this and that. I'm like, great, let's talk. You can be an installer, and then you could take my kit, and then you could be like a certified Rywire installer for this kit. And I think that's the best way to go, especially because I have a small team and we stretch ourselves thin with all these like crazy custom projects that just take a lot of time. And I don't really have the time to build each and every one of my clients' cars, or it would probably end up costing too much if I had to do it. So I feel like the best way to go is parts, um, good instruction, install shops if you don't feel comfortable, of course, and using used components to build the kits I think is pretty cool because that's very sustainable. I didn't get into EV to save the world per se. I have hippie parents. I was brought up
Hey
very
mom, hey
like,
dad. I mean, I got a Grateful Dead shirt on, so I don't, we're everybody's got a little granola in them. You know what I mean?
yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I want to save the planet too, but my involvement in EV is definitely not thought of to save the world. You know what I mean? The cool thing though is that we're using used parts for the most part, and they're vehicles that are super plentiful. And you're talking batteries, for example. If you can source good quality reused batteries, that's like the ultimate when it comes to saving the environment, is because they're not even getting recycled. They're getting recycled into a car, into a performance vehicle that used to be gasoline. Also, something that's really cool is with the kits I'm trying to do, I'd love to be able to go backwards. So if you ever wanted to take out that EV system and you could save your gasoline engine, your wiring loom, your air conditioning, and you could put all that back in your car. And in theory, you shouldn't have really cut much. So that's also really the goal with the new kit that we're going to come out with. Obviously, my EK is all cut up, the floor's cut out of it, batteries are in there. It's wild, and there's no going back. But that's a salvage car. It was really minimal, but it was a salvage vehicle. So with everything, I don't want to just like cut some cherry car up. I'll do that with consciousness of it, being something that's probably already gone. You know.
Yeah, I think you have a respect for pure vehicles, and I was just at Formula Drift, and there were some amazing cars there, by the way, up in Monroe. Just because you get all these Canadians that have these JDM cars, and like I saw this ill Stagio wagon, this dope E46 wagon. Um, saw Greg's pink F40, which just offends people. They're like, that should not be pink. I'm like, he can
Yeah.
do whatever he wants. It's by the way, it's a wrap. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the video of Sam driving the pink F40. Did you
Yeah,
hear
I did.
about? Mm.
That's a talk. Yeah, yeah. That's sad news. Oh, shit.
Yeah, I saw it. I might have instigated it. I said, "Do a burnout, you won't." And yeah,
Oh
you can
no.
go ahead and look up the video. Sorry, Sam, I had to do it to you. um, no,
Yeah.
but
No,
so okay.
there's great
Speaking of
Hondas.
motorsports, yeah. So speaking of motorsports and Formula Drift and Nitro Cross, what's your stance on, I mean, there's old Civic Cup and all these cool cups. Let's make the Rywire EV Civic Cup. How sick would that be?
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that right now, as far as like the battery tech's really got to step up a bit. In that's attainable batteries that we can use in our retrofits, if you will. Biggest thing I would say is I think that that's a very good direction to kind of start going, and I think that'd be rad to be able to see these cars on track and racing them. You're talking either Pikes Peak or some kind of like little spec series, like you're saying. You like a bunch of guys have these, EGs and EKs, or even like, some non
A
Hondas, maybe some
fit.
RX-7s or something, right? And you could do
Yep.
like a button willow circuit time attack. But I think that the battery tech definitely needs to be a little bit more efficient. And I mean, I'm just crossing my fingers, like everything, like in time, you got to lay the groundwork. I'm learning a lot of stuff. As soon as that battery tech levels up a bit, like there's going to be no going back. I feel like it's going to be so amazing to see a car that could do like maybe 20 laps or something like that at full pedal, and be able to have like literally zero sag in the batteries. That would be like the goal, right?
Yep. Yeah. Have you been out to Nitrocross? Have you seen the FC1X?
I have seen it a little bit, just like watching you on your Instagram feeds and stuff like that, and then
Yeah.
tuning in a little bit and watching it. I have not been out there yet. I'd love to go check it out. That would be super rad. I mean, I'm following, like, I know Travis Pastrana is involved with it and everything, and it's like really neat to see him doing that and tearing it up. And I know he's like kind of leading the pack, and it's really neat, dude. Like, I think that it's super rad to see, and like it's great to see you involved with it.
Right.
You're great. You make it easy to listen to, So yeah, dude.
Hey,
Thank you
cool
so much for what
jazz.
you're doing. And it's
No, I
awesome,
think
dude. Gonna
no,
be a lot
thanks,
of
man. And yeah, and I'll get you tickets. Come out to Nitrocross. I got you out here at Glen Helen. I know you're in Southern California, right down the road, right down the
yep.
freeway. Speaking of your location, so we teased it a little bit. Check out his house, dude, his garage. I mean, with your CRX, the sliding doors. I mean, you got, I mean, such a great aesthetic. Did that? I mean, that's not really hippie parents influence. That's just clean aesthetic, sterile, good starkness. I mean, sick crib, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, so my grandmother used to have a really cool mid-century modern home in Monterey. Top of the hill, windows everywhere, just glass and different colored glass, and it was just like so rad. And I remember being really inspired when I was a kid, like not really understanding what that was. And then my father had this like vintage, like 1885 house in Pacific Grove, which is right next to Monterey. And he did like a little addition build on the back, and it was all mid century, like everything with floor to ceiling windows, clerestory windows, and everything was just like really cool. And my dad had a lot of that design kind of style, even though he might not have even really known that that's what he was doing. He just kind of built onto the back. He's a handyman. He does everything himself. So I'm following those footsteps, and with the house, I was like, well, this house that I purchased, I really wanted like an Eichler, and that was just a little bit more than I wanted to spend. This was back in like 2016, 17, something like that, when I purchased this home. And it's like a flat parapet roof house. And I was like, what would be really cool is to make this ultra modern, but with a mid-century kind of twist, right? So I ended up
Yeah.
building it out the front of the house a little bit, and I created an atrium. And that was something that I loved with the Eichlers, is those frosted glass panels with some kind of a colored front door. And you walk in and then you're outside again, right? And it's this glass space that you can enjoy from all the different angles of the home. And that was something that I was like, I have to have that. There's a way to create it. So me and my wife used SketchUps, and we actually designed our house fully, like 100% fully designed the house in SketchUps. And then we gave that to a builder, and they were like, yes, we could do that. This is whatever. And they kind of toned it down a little bit. I wanted like floating glass corners and all these things, but it was like, well, that's a lot of structural and it's going to be really expensive. So I had to kind of like set a cap on how much I wanted to spend with the project, and try to get everything that I wanted, but with some kind of a manageable amount of money. So some things were spare no expense, like that glass sliding door. I wanted to create an area like that was an inside outside feel, something that kind of incorporated a really cool garage, but secondary like bonus space. So we have it set up where we have a 2-car garage. You can drive through another garage door and then into the house. So there's no door there. It's actually like straight into the kitchen access, the office access, and then there's like a 20-foot long glass door that's about 9 to 10 feet high, and then that goes straight out into hardscaping, and then the pool in the back, ground level deck, all Ipe wood and stuff like that. So it turned out rad. It was definitely the vision, and yeah, it was a great build. It I basically treated it like a car. Break it down. I did a lot of the wiring myself. Learned a lot with the build, and just from watching them pour the concrete to doing all the little architectural details that I like to do, like just the way that you execute. It's so funny, you got guys that are doing home renovations, and they're just doing builder grade material, and if they're aware of some of the materials that you can get from a custom supply house that maybe might not be your Home Depot, with just for a little bit more money, just a little bit more money, you can have a hugely different space. You can create it something that's a custom home with really just a minimal amount more money. So I think, like, for me, because I'm not filthy rich or anything, so I can't build like some glass house in the Hollywood Hills, which would be the dream, but it's just not. I mean, I got to start somewhere. So learning and really just like gaining a lot of knowledge is the same thing that I'm after. I feel like my whole life is just bettering myself and teaching myself things and implementing, like, what little touches can I do to make it like truly mine and different from everybody else.
Well, your hustle game is strong. Here you are taking these Hondas and again refining that. There's a story being told here, and that's why hopefully anybody listening can see it's really inspiring to see. Here's this Honda dude exposed to this, exposed to that. Here's all these points of influence. I mean, here we are. My oldest son entering his senior year of high school, right? So all his influences, what me announcing, he's announcing now. This is yeah, we're talking EV, we're talking about electrification, but also this is inspiring, man. This is really cool, and applying all your influences from, you said your uncle showing you Hondas, you said your hippie parents, this, your grandma showing you the house stuff, and you having this efficiency and respect for the industry and saying like, okay, I'm going to take my Honda stuff, apply the EV stuff, and that's also being implemented in your house. So I think there's so much crossover there. And also, how beautiful is that? How big a role cars played a role in your life, that it's almost your centerpiece at your home. So again, look at these photos. If you don't know, again, Rywire's Instagram. I mean, is the EF and the CRX yours? The white ones with the Mugans and stuff?
So the CRX is my buddy Aaron's, and we
Hmm.
built that car for him, and I have it at my shop currently right now. It's actually like smoking a bit. Like, I think the rings are kind of shot, so I'm probably
Oh
gonna
boy.
have to go through and rehone and fix that for him, because I really don't want anybody else touching the car. I'd rather just do it myself because we spent so much time on it. And then the hatchback, the EAT Civic, the old like 85 hatch is mine. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's the one that
Oh,
kind of
dude, that
stays
thing
at
is
the
so
house for the
sick. The
most
Mugans.
part.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, it is again, I had an EK, I had a 96 EK back in the day, had a B18 that was going to go in. And I grew up street racing, like you said, and, worked at Group 5 Motorsports, went to Tokyo Auto Salon in 1999. That's when the Top Fuel Civic unfortunately crashed, that high speed crash that killed the editor of Option back in the day, or Option 2. Um, I got to talk about your shop too. Your shop, just again,
Yeah.
applying that aesthetic. I'm sure you're being resourceful. Like you said, you know, you're not a thrillionaire, but baller on a budget. And I think that's kind of the way you and I, again, I'm a little older than you, but that hustler way, make a dollar out of 15 cents, right? So it's pretty cool. But your shop, man, it looks beautiful as well.
Thank you. Yeah. So same formula, man. Got into that shop, kind of made a big move, and just said, I'm sick of paying rent, and I'd love to own a building eventually. And so just kind of made it happen. I got a good rate, and I got a good loan, and I was like, let's just do it. And then I said, better time than ever to renovate the place. I really didn't want to spend the cash at that moment. I feel like I'm bleeding money right now, but at the same time, it's like, what better opportunity to renovate the space and make it truly mine, and make it more usable. So I got with my buddies, and like a lot of resources helped me out when it's just from framers to all these different subcontractors and stuff, and people that were just really willing to help. A lot of guys that did stuff on my home, I was able to kind of like bring over. But yeah, so we just made it happen. And same thing, you spend a little bit of money, a little extra money, and do things a little bit different way. It makes a huge impact. Just the way that we did the windows, being able to create like glass corners, which I've always wanted in my own home, is I really like that architectural touch because you could see through the corner. There's no post there. And we did a lot of glass, so we kind of have like a showroom, if you will, but then also you can look straight out into the shop, a space for us to be able to manufacture and build a lot of cool stuff, but then also to be able to really enjoy the space with really cool colors, and everything's very subtle, but we're going to spruce it up with some cool furniture. So that's going to be something that I definitely want to implement, that like mid-mod furniture into that very modern space. I think it's going to be perfect. So it's bigger. We have more lifts. I got more room to collect cars. Yeah, dude, I can't wait for the future. It's going to be pretty rad being in that place.
Yeah, I need to link you up with my boy Josh over at Modernica and get some shell chairs. And have you ever? Again, we're going down a mid-century modern, so if you don't care, go ahead and fast forward real quick. But if you do, Modernism Week out in Palm Springs celebrates all things mid-century. And have you ever been to Modernism Week out in Palm Springs?
Yeah, I've been like 2 or 3 times early on. I haven't been recently. So I think in the last like, it's been like 2 years at least since I've gone. But yeah, me
Yeah,
and my wife went. One day we just did like a quick day trip, and then another time, I think it was almost 5 years ago. It might have been their like second one, I want to say. We went down
wow,
there, we stayed in Palm Springs, and we did a bunch of the tours, hugely inspired. And that,
yeah,
dude, like it's just seeing like all these famous people's homes, their second homes, and how cool those houses turned out with those amazing architects that, like, God, it just kills me when I hear about like mansions in the Hollywood Hills going in and tearing down these like amazing mid-century dreams. Um,
yeah,
what are your
yeah.
thoughts on that?
It's and that Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I live in a 1956 mid-century, and it's become part of our identity now. We've been in it 3
Yep.
years, and sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, we live in this house." Then sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, we live in this house." It's like driving an old 56, Nomad, right? You come out smelling a little bit like gas, you come out smelling a little bit like that, but it's a perfume, man, and it kind of has this feel and this soul to it. Either it be a house or either it be a car, but you put this, and again, analogously, here you are taking the spirit of Honda, right? And our spirit over the rival. Sorry, throwing a little Bomax shout there. The old banners, but you're taking the spirit and the soul of Honda and giving a transplant, and this is something you've done from your beginning, and here we are into the future. Speaking of future, so there's our mid-century modern talk. Thanks for coming to our TED talk. What's on the horizon for Rywire? Why wow? Does anybody go why Ryer?
Why?
I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
those
we
get
get we
switched up.
get. I mean, I tongue twist it
Why Ryer?
sometimes too. Yeah. Why?
What's why wow? Why wow? Say that red leather, yellow leather. What's on the horizon for you?
Well, getting into the new shop is going to be huge. Potentially, maybe we're gonna I definitely want to hire somebody to help with the shop and just like help me with the builds. Maybe somebody that can fabricate pretty well, and maybe even somebody that's good behind the camera. So more of that would be really cool. Like I was talking about with the EV projects, I want to get those EVs to a point where it's a kit. I want to be able to sell that to the public. We work a lot with Turn 14. They were one of the huge biggest supporters on our first S2000 EV build, but we're one of the line cards in on their team. So I'd love to be able to distribute EV kits or components through the Turn 14 outlet. So that would be huge. And then getting into the new shop, getting some, a little bit more help, maybe a guy or two to help with all that. And I think that's the future, man. Just I really can't wait to get into this building it's finally finished, and it's going to be, I think, a big turning point, a huge step for Rywire.
It's really ambitious. I think you're kind of a duck, right? I don't know if you know this analogy, but kind of cool, calm, and collected, but your feet are always kind of moving, right? So I think you're doing a really great job implementing, again, just all the stuff you've learned, but also applying it and forging new ground. Those kits are just going to be really, really cool. And again, like I said, taking the soul of this Honda and the spirit of that and giving it this new life. And I think that's absolutely tremendous, man. So thanks for all your contributions in the EV world, and also, near and dear to my heart is the H badge, man. I think it's really, really cool. So I'd love to have an EK and do this Rywire kit, man. I think that'd be rad.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you as well, dude. Like when I heard that, or I listened to the podcast that they announced that you're going to be the new host, I was like, hell yeah, I want to talk to Jarod.
Lastly, again, anything else you want to plug at all? Where can they find out information? Rywire, where can they buy the Seinfeld CRX t-shirt? I don't know. Anything else?
So yeah, rywire.com. And then also my Instagram, rywire_motorsport_electronics. If you just search Rywire on all the platforms, you should be able to spot me. And yeah, man, I guess that, and keep a lookout for the kit. I'm working on it as best I can. And you can buy all my stuff through Turn 14. So definitely hit them up, or your dealer that deals through Turn 14.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. Really appreciate your time. Check them out. Really cool. Love the progression. And I got a thing of popcorn, man. We're watching. It's really cool to see what's going on, forging this ground, and again, just creating your own lane in this very interesting new EV world, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Yeah, of course, man. So
Peace.
excited. And see you at Electrify Expo, Electrify Show Off, all those things. Again, I'm Jarod Deanna. Thank you for tuning in, and all things EV. Send it. Thanks for listening to the Electrify Podcast, brought to you by the creators of Electrify Expo. Be sure to catch full video episodes on YouTube at Electrify TV and follow along on social media for daily clips and more.